It's time for the 13th and 14th round picks in a high stakes underdog best ball draft in the Bulldog, a $500 entry. We here at Spike Week are drafting a slow draft into the Bulldog. 4 of us making our way through a fun 0 running back team. We're going to make rounds 13 and 14 picks here. Just a second. Let's do it. All right, we are back, getting close to polishing up this team that I'm really excited for, actually. You never know how it's going to go when you, like, especially slow draft, right? You're recording the team, and sometimes things don't go your way, and then you get on the clock and you've drafted a terrible team and everybody makes fun of you. And in this particular series of videos, we're doing a video for every 2 picks. God forbid, thank God we're not doing one for all 18 picks. We got lucky, actually, I guess, picking at the turn. But so far, so good. If this is the first video you happen to have seen of this series, again, as I said in the intro, we're drafting a $500 best ball team on Underdog. 4 of us, myself, Silas, and Trev, and of course, Rob, who cannot be with us tonight. Silas is going to give some of his takes when we start to get on the clock here. But we have, like I said, fired off a pretty fun 0 running back team with Lamar Jackson at quarterback and George Kittle at tight end. And we're now getting to these later rounds. And so hopefully this won't be another one of our hour-and-a-half long discussions. Silas has got a big weekend ahead of him. I don't think he needs to be spending all this time talking about 14th round picks. But without further ado, let's bring up the board. We can start to walk through where we're at and get you guys' opinions on the team really quick. For the audio listeners and for anybody that has not, again, watched the first handful of videos, there is a link to those videos in the description here. But we started in the first round from the 11th overall pick. Got a little lucky, I think, with A.J. Brown falling to us at 11th overall. Took the Eagles stack there with Devonta Smith, which you can go back and watch the fun discourse that we had on that one. Jalen Hurts did not get back to us, but we took Lamar Jackson in the 3rd round and Terry McLaurin in the 4th round. Came back around and started to build out a little 49ers stack with Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle, and then closed out a Lamar Jackson stack with Zay Flowers in the 7th round. Started finally firing some running backs for the RB bros. I promise we didn't push it any further than the 8th round. Cam Akers was our first running back, and we have been hammering running back there since with Damian Harris, A.J. Dillon, Tank Bigsby, and Khalil Herbert. So now we're back on the clock here in the 13th round, and I'm going to go ahead and right away pass it over to Silas to kind of show who's on the board and your initial thoughts on where we should head here in the 13th.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Trev can't be pounding the table for Chig. He did go in the middle of the 12th. But, it kind of seemed like it was kind of all over the place. People are kind of starting to round out their rosters. Since we've drafted 5 running backs in a row, I was kind of pushing for a wide receiver last round. It's kind of starting to get thinned out where there's some upside guys. We take a look at quarterback, and I did talk to Rob right before this, who can't join us. When I showed him everything that was on the board, he brought up one little mini correlation that I also thought was pretty interesting in Jordan Love and Jaden Reed. That's where my brain was going, kind of grabbing Jaden Reed as an upside wide receiver here, and then correlating him and A.J. Dillon with Jordan Love as kind of like our second quarterback, finishing that out, rather than grabbing either Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, or Sam Howell.
Trev, as you first get a look at who's on the board here, what are your kind of general thoughts on what to do here at this turn?
I think my first thoughts were I like the receivers more, honestly. Kind of the upside guys, like we were saying, the Chark, MVS, Jaden Reed, all those guys. Just because we pounded running backs, and now I'm fine not going with more running backs for now, and maybe a little bit of a value falls that we can pick up. But for quarterback, my eyes are still more on the Purdy Howell of it all, because I think when we're going double Ayuk and Kittle, we kind of need Purdy in there. We need him playing. If it's Trey Lance, it's going to be hard for both those guys to live up to their ADP. And if it's Sam Darnold, I'm not sure if either of them can, So I think I'm looking a little later at quarterback still. I'm not completely against Love. I take him a decent amount, and I really like Reed, honestly, just as if he's a starting receiver in the 14th round, that's a rookie, maybe get some upside, and the whole Romeo situation over there, we don't really know what's going on. So I'm definitely receiver here. And then if you got some bull case on Love, I wouldn't be against it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. First, I will start with I think Jaden Reed is my favorite pick here overall across the board, any position. Not even talking about the Jordan Love thing. I think Jaden Reed is my favorite player here. Whether or not we have Jordan Love, he's just a good. He's the best pick on the board to me at wide receiver. I could not agree more with you guys. Can you click over to running back just really quickly so I can kind of just mention some of those names that are on the board at running back. So at the top of so we already took Khalil Herbert. I don't personally want to take Roshan when we have taken Khalil Herbert. I think that really it's one thing to handcuff, later guys, but Roshan really steals the bull case away from Khalil Herbert, and I think we would just be burying one of our running backs on a build that we need. We need all we don't need all our running backs to hit, but we need as many shots on goal as we can get. And then once you get beyond there, it is I don't really like the Zeke thing. Tyjae Spears is fine. I do like Chuba, but these guys are their ADPs are far past the pick where we're going here, and I don't think that they're so strong that we can't get guys similar in the in the next 4 picks that we have in this draft. So I agree with you with kind of leaning more towards the other positions outside of running back. We know we're probably going to go with 7 running backs. I would guess looking at this team, we're probably going to go with 7 running backs. And so I'm not super worried about this particular tier. I will say I am more on Trev's side with the quarterback thing. We've kind of set ourselves up for either of Purdy or Howell. We have those guys kind of at that next turn completely available to us. Either one of them. I agree. I think this team Purdy probably makes a little bit more sense. And we're kind of covered with Purdy's potential injury. It seems like everything's going to be fine with Purdy, but like the fact that we have Lamar, we really have a lot of cover for that first part of the season, even if Purdy's not 100% healthy. And then, like I said, you have Howell in your back pocket, and we have other late round quarterbacks that we don't want this to happen to us, but Mac Jones, Desmond Ridder, Jimmy G, those other guys are back there as fallback options. And I actually don't mind Jordan Love in general, but I just think when I'm comparing the two things, we're really set up for those other stacks. And I think those other stacks are more powerful. Purdy with the 2 guys we've taken versus backdooring the Packers just because it's available to us. I lean more towards those guys. Then the only other thing I was going to say is this tier of wide receiver, Jaden Reed, I think is kind of all of our guy. But really total, like you said, MVS. If you guys want to talk about DJ Chark, Marvin Mims is a guy I really like. Rashid Shaheed is a guy I really like. And I think that there's a little bit of a fall off after those guys. Not like so drastically, but then we do get into Giants wide receiver roulette. We get into John Mechie, who's coming off a very serious illness. And I like taking shots on all those guys, but I think from Shaheed on up, not really KJ Osborne, unless you guys like him, but kind of on up are guys that I feel really good about both their upside case, particularly those rookies. Shaheed, I'm really excited for the Saints. There's just a group of wide receivers here that I feel like we could build out the end of this wide receiver kind of tier to me and create a really strong wide receiver room, knowing that we're going to take one of these late round tight ends, of which there are a million. We have stacking options at quarterback, and then we're going to, close out some lottery tickets at running back. So what do you guys think about maybe double tapping wide receiver as opposed to doing the Love Reed thing?
I think.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Trevor.
Sorry. Yeah, I think if we go double receiver here, I'm super comfortable with 7. If we push our 7th guy into the next tier, we still have 5 really good wide receivers, but then it's like a little more questionable. I feel really comfortable when we do the 2 here, and then we can just be done and focus the rest of our picks on quarterback, running back, and tight end. But I do, even though I'm against the Jordan Love pick, I do have to say, and making a case for him, that I was saying with our Dylan pick, I think he's a bet on the Packers too, because his bull case includes a lot of touchdowns. I think, he's not breaking off long runs, he's not catching a lot of passes. So I think when we took him, while he's also a handcuff, that's one way for him to win. But we're saying, he's going to get 8, 9 touchdowns, somewhere in that range. He can really like go off. And so in that way, I think it's a bet on Green Bay. But we can also use Jaden Reed to make that bet. We don't need to go with a Love route.
What do you think, Silas?
Yeah, so the only reason I was saying Jordan Love is even though we've already set up for a Niners or that Washington Niners game week 17, the way the guys on the 49ers win are pretty much through spike weeks. Like they're not really, consistent players. We know George Kittle, he's great and obviously he can put up a 40 bomb at any given point. And he'll probably put up, 6-7 points throughout. So we're not really gaining any ceiling by grabbing Purdy. We pretty much already all encompassed it through Ayuk and Kittle. Granted, we have Debo and CMC there, right? We'd obviously need an injury there to kind of entirely encapsulate their ceilings. But we know with Love, he is a dual threat quarterback. We kind of expect that offense to potentially take a step forward, maybe play a little bit faster with a guy that's a little bit more athletic than Rodgers. It gives us a chance at potentially having 2 QB1s and kind of ping-ponging and actually increasing our overall ceiling. Sorry, someone turned my lights off and that scared the hell out of me.
As a Seahawks fan, I mean, Purdy put up 35? He had 35 points in that playoff game. Like we've seen that ceiling, and I'm a little skeptical of that run that he went on, but it's hard to say he's going to be bad when he has those weapons. He has that scheme. I think the injury is the most concerning part, but we got Lamar.
No, and I totally understand that part of it, right? But he's going to be doing most of his work through the air, right? Like not through the ground. So you're really encapsulating.
So is Love. So is Jordan Love.
Jordan Love runs.
Brock Purdy ran for the same amount of yards in college as Jordan Love did, and Jordan Love's not some exceptional athlete. Jordan Love is like Geno as a rushing archetype. Like he'll add a little bit, but it's he's not. This isn't Justin Fields or whatever. Yeah. If he's scoring a bunch of fantasy points, it's because he's throwing as well.
Okay. So that was my only thought. I mean, I'm totally fine grabbing 2 wide receivers.
But I like the bet on the the bet on the Packers makes total sense. Like Jordan Love could. It's a talented offense. I don't really. It's more about this team for me. I think with the Purdy Howell versus Love or whatever. It is just that. We've made a bigger bet on the 49ers. We've made a bigger bet on Washington. And I do think it makes sense just in that this tier is really bad. And Love is kind of one of the best available players. And I do like him as a QB too. I love Jaden Reed. We're all kind of in agreement on that. I just think that kind of the way we've built this team out is we do kind of need those 49ers to succeed. Like George, especially, we have an elite tight end. We only got one. Brandon Ayuk is one of our highest wide receiver picks. And as Trev said, look, we don't need to do the Trey Lance discourse, but like if they're going to succeed over the course of this season, it's probably not because Trey Lance is at quarterback. It is probably because Brock Purdy is at quarterback. And 49ers quarterbacks, this is what used to be part of the bull case for Trey Lance. It was like it almost didn't matter how good you were. You scored points. The offense put up points, and you put Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard. If anyone knows Tony Niehaus, Big T of DFS fame from Run Pure Sports. Every time I see him at a DFS Live final, he's got his CJ Beathard jersey on because I believe he won the Millie with a CJ Beathard George Kittle stack. But like these guys are no names. They're barely even hanging. I don't even know if Nick Mullins is in the league anymore. But like they just pop up on this. The only reason Purdy is going where he goes is because of the injury uncertainty. And every day we just get more reports like, nope, he's the guy. And I feel like knowing that and knowing we have the Lamar cover, it just gives us that opportunity. And if we don't get him, we have other quarterback. Like I like Jordan Love better than some of those other late round guys, but we have Howell available to us. We have Mac Jones. We have Jimmy G. We have Desmond Ridder. So like we have that cover. And it's not to say that we don't have cover at these other positions. We're in the 13th, 14th round. It's basically all a crapshoot. But I do just think particularly like Reed, Marvin Mims, Shaheed, MVS, Chark, those guys are pretty locked into some form of a role, some form of upside, whether it's because they're playing with Patrick Mahomes or they're rookies. There's just a little bit of juice and also certainty here at this wide receiver spot that I like. We didn't talk about tight end. We also could theoretically, if we don't want to take 2 wide receivers, theoretically there is Tyler Higbee, Irv Smith, Gerald Everett, Juwan Johnson, Sam Laporta, and Taysom on the board at tight end. Nobody really jumps out to me, but I guess we usually walk through just to make sure and do our due diligence. Anything here, I know Chig is gone, so Trev probably is done with the fucking tight end discussion. But anything else jump out here too, and then we can kind of make a final decision.
Not too much for me. It's a lot of guys that I think are more just safe and not a lot of upside. So I'd rather punt. We have our upside play at tight end with Andrews, so I'd rather just keep punching it off. But I already talked about why I like receivers earlier, so it's more in that vein. I do think the one person who's interesting here is Laporta. I do really like Laporta. I don't think he would come back. I guess there's a chance, but I think he is the one upside guy because with no Jameson for those first few games, it might just be Amon-Ra and him out there getting targets.
You don't think Marvin Jones is gonna be racking up a bunch of targets?
Yeah.
No, I think that he would probably be the guy just because I think he's a home run swing here, where we don't really love, like, we like some guys, we don't really love anybody, no pun intended, with Jordan Love, but like I do really like Sam Laporta. I don't really have a super strong take here, to be honest with you. I do think through the conversation, we're all pretty down for Jayden Reed. I think he makes a ton of sense, whether it's just from a vacuum player perspective or the Packers bet or stacking with Jordan Love. He just makes so much sense. He also would set us up if we wanted to sink our teeth into one of these backup Vikings running backs as a later, we're going to take 2 more backs. We could look at Ty Chandler or Dwayne McBride later, and we could still have a bet on the Packers and a bet on that Week 17 game, and we wouldn't have to do the Jordan Love, and we can use these other quarterbacks as a backstop. So just trying to come up with some tiebreakers, really, but I do think Jayden Reed stands out the most to me. Silas, what do you think?
Yeah, so with the tight ends, you can kind of see through my exposures, like, these guys are not super exciting for me. I think they're pretty much the same bets as the guys in the 17th, 18th round. So I kind of want to push off there. The wide receiver, like, I'm kind of between Jayden Reed and DJ Chark. Like, Braden's kind of been that old school, you never know what the hell he's going to take. Like, Chark's more
That's
of
a
a
good point.
name. So I think he would probably take him, and he correlates.
He also has Thielen.
Yeah, and he has Thielen, and he correlates in both Week 16 and 17. So, it's kind of a two little mini stacks that kind of play out for us. I think he would be less inclined to take Jayden Reed with what his wide receiver core looks like, just because I don't think he's going to be shooting for pure upside. I think he's going to be kind of shooting for floor. So, like, he kind of seems like potentially KJ Osborne because of his boom bust games last year, and MBS kind of seems like right up his alley. You know what I mean?
That is KJ Chark MV. The top of the wide receiver does feel like guys he's gonna take. I like the Chark points, and I'm glad you brought that up. And for anybody that has not used our draft hacker overlays, I'm glad Silas brought it up. You see next to DJ Chark his playoff schedule: Atlanta, Green Bay, and Jacksonville. And obviously Green Bay and Jacksonville are lighting up in green there, being highlighted, meaning he correlates with players that we've already drafted in those games. And that's another really good tiebreaker, I think, because especially if we double tapped like DJ Chark, Jayden Reed, and then like we did do something maybe with the Vikings or whatever, we're like using all these playoff matchups as tiebreakers, and like we're like correlated all throughout the playoffs. Like really with just a couple of picks, you know what I mean? And again, that's a way to bet on Packers, right? If the Packers are good and then they're having shootout games, we get 16 shootout game with the DJ Chark bring back. We obviously can target the Vikings, and then DJ Chark already correlates with our Tank Bigsby, right? ETN goes down or Tank takes over the backfield. We got to bring back on that. DJ Chark definitely is a good point, and I think Braden would probably take him over Jayden Reed would be my guess if we're deciding between the two. What do you think, Trev?
The one guy I want to bring up is MVS. We have the correlation on Chark, So that's it's hard to argue against that. But betting on Mahomes versus Bryce Young, that's a bet I like to take. And he's still looks to be their deep threat. You never know what they're doing with their receivers.
He's going to play. He's the one guy I think we should feel confident that I mean, he could lose some snaps, but I think we should feel confident that he's their best blocker. He's really their only outside guy. That's kind of why Justin Ross is getting hyped, because they have all these little gadgety guys and slot receivers, and MVS is really the only outside guy. So I feel confident that he's gonna play. What does that mean? Who the fuck knows? But he's gonna play for the Chiefs, and that's better than playing for the Panthers.
He's also making $10 million, so he's not getting cut.
Good. Very true. Very true.
Chark's making some stupid money for how good he is too. But
yeah, the Panthers are paying the 2017 All-Stars a whole bunch of money out there. But Trev, if you had to rank, well, first I'll say I think if I'm narrowing it down, it would be between Jayden Reed, DJ Chark, and MVS as my favorites. And then if Braden does happen to make our picks here, we can talk about Marvin Mims and Rashid Shaheed, who I do like. But I think as we've talked it through, Chark, MVS, and Reed are my top three. Reed is still probably my number one. But how would you kind of rank those wide receivers available here, Trev? We'll start with you.
I think I'd go Reed, MVS, Chark. But I do like how we were saying we could probably get Reed on our next pick. I'm not sure if we want to risk it because the other guys are pretty close. Yeah, I think I like MVS over Chark. He's going to play with Mahomes, we're assuming. Tony can't stay healthy. They might just hate Sky more because he can't catch a punt. So, and our guys, we're not our running backs can get there even if they're just blowing out Carolina,
Yeah.
So the correlation is nice, but I think I still just lean to MVS because I like a player who has a good quarterback, and he's got the best quarterback in the damn league.
How would you?
But it's real close.
It's close, yeah.
The one thing I was going to bring up is Chark is playing in Atlanta, at home in Carolina, and then at Jacksonville. So his playoff schedule is really nice. He's not really going to have any bad weather situations.
Yep.
Or MVS will, but I don't think it matters.
Yeah, they're like the weather and matchup breaker, the Chiefs. You know what I mean? Other teams even Bills Patriots play in Week 17. I'm not shying away from anyone on either of those teams because of that, but it's at least something to say. If we got here and we didn't have any correlations like we don't with MVS, and it was Khalil Shakir or whatever, right? You could say, it's not amazing against the Patriots outdoors in Buffalo or New England or wherever it is. But with like you said, I don't really care how cold it is in Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes will throw for 400 yards. It doesn't really matter.
But yeah, you can think of the Buffalo New England game 2 years ago on Monday night where the game was 6-0. It was
the Patriots threw 4 passes or something like that. It was right.
Yeah, they literally couldn't pass because there were 40-mile-an-hour winds. It was snowing feet, and it was just miserable. So that, that's obviously a concern, but I personally would try to push Jayden Reed, just because I like him the most, but I think he's a very similar bet to Mims and Shaheed. It's a kind of more of a deep threat rookie, probably breakout later half of the year. I'd rather solidify the wide receiver group, so I'd go. I think you've probably swayed me on MVS over Chark. So probably MVS over Chark.
Yeah, it's really the correlation. The other thing about the correlation, just trying to think through as we've done on most of these videos, is think about this specific tournament that we're talking about. And it's not to say that things like the Week 16, Week 17 correlation don't matter, because they do. But the advancement structure it's a very small tournament, right? What did we say? 432 teams,
432.
I think is 432.
432.
And so, four advance out of your regular season team, which is much nicer than 2, but then it's much easier to advance each week thereafter. And so again, the correlations can help you with that, because you just make that one bet in those playoff weeks, it hits, you easily advance, right? But it's we also have a tiebreaker with this dude plays for the Chiefs. Right? It's yes, we have the tiebreaker on the Chark side, but we also have the Patrick Mahomes tiebreaker on the other side. And it's so I think if it were me and I were drafting this team by myself, but I had talked to you guys before, like we just did, I think I would take MVS and hope that Jayden Reed came back to me. And then if Jayden Reed doesn't, then we figure it out from there. But I think that that's what I would do. It's kind of like when all else fails, draft the chief. MVS was a guy who I know he didn't have a monster year last year. I know he's MVS, and he's probably not that great at football. But we saw the potential in the playoffs last year. He saved their bacon last year in the AFC Championship game. And he had multiple opportunities for big games last year. Him and Mahomes just kind of didn't connect. It actually wasn't his fault for once. Back in the Rodgers days, it was always his fault. Rodgers dropped it in the bucket and he would drop it. But this time, him and Mahomes were just not on the same page connecting down the field. But he had chances. And so I think he's a pretty good pick here, 13th, 14th round. What do you guys think about taking MVS, and then hopefully Braden will make his picks and see what happens on the wrap here?
Sounds good.
That is what I would do. So
yeah,
let's do it. Let's do it and see if we can get Braden to make the pick.
but yeah, as you brought up, like I think in BBM, I think I would shift towards the correlation aspect because you really do need those, mini games to really hit.
Yep.
And then in this tournament, since it's 4 of 12 advance, 2 of 6, and then 1 of 6, like you really only have to beat out 5 people in week 16. It's nice to have that mini correlation, to potentially give you, 30, 35 points, but you don't need that 160, 170 point week to advance. Like you really probably only need like 135.
Yeah, especially
ideally,
depending upon your group, right? Depending upon your group, and you could be like last year, like Jalen Hurts wasn't playing, in these major playoff weeks, and you get there and you're really only competing with like 2 other teams in week 16. So then you just need live bodies that are scoring points at that point.
Yeah, and I think for how good our receivers are, MVS has a chance to put up those massive scores that actually beat them out. I think Chark might have a higher chance to put up just like 15 to 18 point games that normally
That's a
get
good
in.
point.
But like we got some ballers on our team. We need some big games if they want to get in the lineup.
Yeah, and if he catches one of those bombs from Patrick Mahomes, or God forbid 2 of them, right? He gets that insane week that beats out our superstar wide receiver room. Whereas, like you said, I don't dislike Chark. Clearly, we all like him. He was in our top 3 to 5 picks available here. He did make sense for this team, but when we're trying to break ties amongst 13th and 14th round selections, you got to side somewhere. And I think at the end of the day, despite a down year, MVS on the Chiefs is the archetype of a player, the better in best ball type player. And as a 6th wide receiver on a 0 running back team, I think it makes a lot of sense. Hopefully Braden has been so good about making these selections. Hopefully we'll give it another minute.
He's scrolling down looking for the olds.
Yeah, he did have to scroll down to find Adam Thielen in the 8th round or whatever it was.
Checking for Julio. Seeing if he's still on the site.
All right, we should talk though, because I don't want to hold you guys, especially Silas. I don't really give a shit about Trev. I don't want to hold Silas all night. If in the next little bit Braden does not make a selection, we'll want to set a queue so that Silas can go have fun and also sleep, and we don't have to record this. But how would you guys like to order the guys in a queue for our 14th round pick? Is it for sure Jayden Reed at the top? And then what about, let's say we put Jayden Reed at the top. I think we all probably agree on that. Then what basically was it Chark or MVS, and we want to throw them to the side now and go to one of these younger guys, a Reed or a Mims or something like that, or do you still put Chark like right behind Reed?
That's a good question. Go ahead, Joe.
Sorry. Yeah, I think I'd go Reed Chark still. I think it's a decent bet. There's not a lot of competition. He's gonna be out there on the field. The rookies, I love Marvin Mims. I drafted him a bunch, but we don't know if he's good. He may never get on the field, but I'd assume he will. So I'd go Reed, Chark, Mims, something like that. and just take a shot on. We've seen him produce. We've seen him be a deep threat. If Carolina's good, then he's going to benefit from that. And again, just spike weeks in the 14th round is you're not going to get any guaranteed production down here.
Yeah, so for me, I think I would go Jaden Reed and then probably John Mechie or Rashid Shaheed. Just because of playing time, ceiling outcomes, capital investments. There's definitely a positive report that Tim Patrick seems healthy. So you already have 3 guys there in Denver. You're kind of hoping on a late season breakout or a trade happening. We kind of already talked about DJ Chark, what his like weekly ceiling game is. With our with our wide receiver core right now, like I'm shooting for like someone who could literally break out and potentially go be a second, third, fourth round pick next year. Personally, for me, that's John Mechie, just because he was a former second round pick. If he didn't have that torn ACL, he probably would have gone in the first round, and I fully believe that. Then you add in, obviously he's coming back from cancer, and now he has a hamstring injury, so like he does seem a little bit injury prone. But
this poor guy.
has
this poor guy's having it rough, man.
I had way too much John Mechie last year, and it was the saddest thing in the world. But I think he is like the biggest talent upside with the fact that he's also going to probably play as long as he's healthy, because I mean, who's he competing with? Nico Collins.
Yeah.
Like
right.
he's going to be on the field. He has CJ Stroud, who we know has a freaking cannon. Like they might just be that next elite duo. Like that's who my number 2 would be personally.
No, I think that's fair. I'm gonna throw one more guy. Well, first I'll do my typical Saints song and dance. I'm just very into the Saints. The Saints are certainly not the, we could do the draft the chief on every team. I'm not trying to make that case for the Saints that you have to draft the Saint on every team, but I do. I think it was the last video that I just talked about when we were discussing Kendre. Go back and listen to that one where I kind of talked about really how advantageous I think the Saints are this year. For a lot of different reasons. You could just say, ignoring the schedule and the matchups and the division and everything like that, and just say some of these guys were pretty decent with Andy Dalton and those losers back there at quarterback, the Jameis and all these guys for the last couple of years. It's been a Taysom playing when he was actually playing quarterback before. It's been a disaster at quarterback, and Derek Carr is not, some Hall of Famer, but he's competent. He's going to get the ball out. He's accurate. He's at worst an average NFL quarterback, probably a smidge above average, maybe something like that. So he's just really going to elevate this offense. Like we talk about the Jets and stuff and Rodgers elevating the offense. And of course, Aaron Rodgers is better than Derek Carr. But like no one ever talks about Derek Carr elevating this. All the Saints besides Chris Olave are fucking free. We got to pay the tax on the Jets. You know what I mean? We had to pay the tax on the Broncos last year. But nobody treats the Saints that way. And Rashid Shaheed's going to play in 3 wide receiver sets. Who knows what's up with Michael Thomas, man? He could play in 2 wide receiver sets. He was at the end of last year. It was Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed on the outside. He is a better and best ball type guy too. Is Rashid Shaheed ever going to get 15 targets in a game? No, he's not. But he's an explosive athlete. He was an amazing return man in college. And he's on this Saints team that I want to bet on. I think he is really interesting here. I know there's not like a bunch of correlation or anything like that. The Rams, him and Cam Akers in week 16, that'll take us to glory, I guess. The only other guy I think should at least be in consideration is Curtis Samuel. Another kind of just, he's going to be on the team. He's a pretty good real life football player. Versatile, kind of can do it all. Has played a little running back historically. Gibson's getting all of that hype, but like Curtis Samuel's like a little more proven version of that. And if we want to, we're already making a little bit of bet on Washington. If we want to add in that bet, this would give us outs to a Sam Howell double stack if, say, something doesn't work out with Purdy, and just gives us another secondary stack in general on an offense that I like. So I really have no problems with any of these guys. I think this is a tougher, probably even decision than MVS. I still think Jaden Reed, to be clear, is number 1, but how we order them thereafter, I think is really wide open. Trev, how would you order them after Jaden Reed?
I'm adding another guy now. After I would probably put him number 2 after Jaden Reed. Just looking, I kind of passed over him, but Isaiah Hodgins. he's one of the few guys that they got all these slot receivers, and he's like 6'2" or 6'3". Like he's one of the few guys. Him and Slayton, I want to say, like the two bigger guys on the team. He could be their starting X, and he played well down the stretch. And we got the double correlation. We got the Philly. We got the Rams. So I think that's interesting. And Curtis Samuel's probably up there too. But I'd say after the discussion, I'd go Reed, Hodgins, and then everyone else is they're all right there. I mean, it's so close between. I like what you're saying about Curtis Samuel. And since we passed on Gibson, it's really intriguing. We don't have a massive bet on them. We've just got McLaurin, and if we're taking Purdy, we're looking to take Purdy, then that'd be kind of nice. But
get another little extra bring back. Obviously, it just increases our bet a little bit on Washington. He fits the mold, I think, of like a perfectly fine 7th wide receiver. He's got Braden takes Michael Mayer in the 13th round. It's literally just yesterday I got Michael Mayer with the very last pick in the. Well,
so hold on. This guy has Mark Andrews, Evan Ingram, and now Michael Mayer.
Well, you got to get your guys. Structure be damned. Damned.
Michael Mayer was in high school, but he's still building 2017 power team.
Yeah, that is very. This is a very rare team. From Braden, we're mixing through the rookie Michael Mayer, but we got to bring right. Who was it that he took before? That was we were like, okay, there's a young guy mixed in here, but then there's Adam Thielen in the 8th round.
It was Jalen Hyatt.
Hyatt, yes, takes Jalen Hyatt. Takes let's see here. Oh my gosh, this is a really intriguing team. Shout out to Braden. I appreciate the people though that do their own thing. I would certainly not draft this style of a team, but if this is what you believe in and you're going to go get your guys, go for it. So we spent 10 minutes or so debating how we were going to order our queue, but I think at the end of the day, we're all pretty much in on Jordan Reed. I think just to wrap, if Jordan Love were to somehow come back to us in that next round, I think it will be a very interesting discussion, because then it kind of just becomes Jordan Reed versus Purdy versus Sam Howell. But I do think Jaden Reed makes the most sense here. Any last minute pushback from either of you guys on just taking Reed?
No, I just want to touch on the Curtis Samuel thing just for a minute. It would have been my same argument against Antonio Gibson, where we're putting too much capital in that Week 17 game for this type of contest. 5 out of 18 spots for Washington, San Francisco, because we'll probably grab one of their quarterbacks. Seems like we're putting too significant of a bet into that game with 2 really good defensive lines, 2 really good defenses in general. It could really be low scoring. So that's where I would have gave my pushback on Curtis. Even though I love him, I have a ton of him. But for this particular build, it just didn't make sense.
And I think that's totally fair. I don't have I have no qualms about that. Trev, anything else before we select Jaden Reed, or have you a last minute change of heart to KJ Osborne or Tyler Higbee, or any boomers that we want to take before Braden snipes them all up at the next turn?
No, I think he's good. Breakout upside. We don't know his role, so could be a spike week guy, could be a high volume guy. I think it's a good bet, and we're already making our bet with Dylan, so I think we just double down and go for it.
2nd round pick, rookie wide receiver in it's pretty exciting. I think you can take him, Silas, in a pretty exciting young offense. Obviously, it's going to require Jordan Love to at least be competent, and that remains to be seen. But certainly the infrastructure is there for Jordan Love to succeed. Reed should step right into a full-time slot role, and who knows what else. Maybe he can, he did play on the outside in college. He could take Romeo Dobbs' job into 2 wide receiver sets. I think it's the perfect, especially like the MVS Jaden Reed double tap, I think is kind of the perfect way to round out this type of a wide receiver room on a 0 RB build. We really know what we're going to do with our last 4 picks now. It's going to be 2 running backs, hopefully one of Purdy or Howell, and a late round tight end. We know there's a million late round tight ends. So having those things in our back pocket really helped us. We got a Chief and a spike week type player, and then we got a Reed is like kind of as high of a floor as you can get, for a rookie wide receiver on the Packers, but we know he's going to play. We know that there's breakout potential in those kind of players. He correlates a little bit with A.J. Dillon. So I think this works really good. Just to run down the team one more time for the listeners in case you didn't hear it at the top. Lamar Jackson, Cam Akers, Damian Harris, A.J. Dillon, Tank Bigsby, Khalil Herbert, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Terry McLaurin, Brandon Ayuk, Zay Flowers, MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Jaden Reed, and George Kittle. This is coming together pretty nice, guys. I'm pretty excited about this team and to see how we can kind of close it out at the running back position and kind of which stack we end up landing on. Any closing thoughts before we round out this round 13 and 14 picks, Silas?
I think this is just a clinic of how you do zero RB. Like, especially in this type of contest, it's such a small field. Like, you're allowed to get a little bit different and unique. But yeah, we're closing out some really good floor, really high ceiling wide receivers with just guys who have single game ceiling outcomes. And the running backs are awesome. So.
100%. Trev?
Yeah, I love the draft. I mean, I think as soon as we got that Akers value, we were so comfortable. It was just, we can take whatever values on the board, and in most drafts it's going to be wide receivers. So we got those wide receivers early, and then we just pounded running backs. Now we finished out our wide receiver room and finish off our onesie positions where we already have elite players. So it's not like, oh, we need one of these guys to fall. It's like we have guys set up that we can get, and we don't need them to do too much. We're just expanding our bet with them, and it's great. I love this team.
Great team. Totally agree on everything that you guys said. And again, excited to see how we close it out. But we will be back, as we've said on most of these other videos, a handful of days. We'll be navigating around the weekend, navigating around some tomfoolery on Silas's end over the course of the next several days. But be on the lookout for rounds 15 and 16 of our Bulldog draft here at Spike Week.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there, you can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.